Welcome to the Our World Heritage 2021 debate. 2021 debate is a year of events focused on protection, conservation, and management of world heritage. We want to uncover untold stories to broaden our views on heritage practices and future perspectives. Knowledge gathered this year will be published in 2022 on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of the Convention. The Our World Heritage Initiative is created by individuals working on 100% voluntary capacity. We would like to point out that Our World Heritage provides an open dialogue platform that is based on voluntary work of session organizers and speakers. Our World Heritage welcomes diverse viewpoints in the spirit of collegial debate where mutual respect is afforded to all. Please note that the expressed views do not necessarily reflect the official position of Our World Heritage. We thank today's speakers for telling their stories, and we thank you, the listeners, for your kind interest and questions. If you want to remain up to date on our activities, you can follow our social media. We maintain channels in multiple languages to break through the language barriers and connect to local communities. You will find all links on our website, ourworldheritage.org. Thank you for being with us today, and we wish you a very fruitful event.
Yes, hello. We are starting our second session of the month of Our World Heritage and Sustainability. Welcome everybody. I am Ege Yildirim. I am the coordinator of the Our World Heritage Sustainability theme. We would like to also welcome our speakers who will give fascinating case studies for us on the theme of the session, Heritage as a Development Strategy. I'm also representing here today our conveners of the sustainability team debate, FLACAM, the Latin American Network of Environmental Sciences, the African World Heritage Fund, Athabasca University of Canada, Pratt Institute from the US, ICC Krakow from Poland, and AUK Traveler from India. Beside our institutional partners, we also have our individual, very hardworking team members, some of whom are with us today and organizing this very session. We number about 30 people, and we have been coordinating closely for you to prepare this very intense month of different debates, sessions. 16 sessions are waiting for you in July. We are only actually 1/12 of the whole Our World Heritage Initiative. You just saw in the video. We are tackling the challenge of the upcoming 50th anniversary of the World Heritage Convention. This is a very popular, but well-loved international treaty and a global brand. We all love our heritage sites. And now we are concerned that we are not protecting and managing them enough, perhaps. And we would like to renew the spirit of the World Heritage Convention for the next 50 years to come. So this is really the starting point of the whole Our World Heritage Initiative. And this month, we would like to approach it from the angle of sustainability and sustainable development, of course. Here, the main message that we're giving is really our sustainable heritage means World Heritage conservation is a more sustainable form of development. And this means we need to integrate World Heritage processes into sustainable development planning and debates, and vice versa, integrate sustainable development concerns in all its aspects, socio-economic, environmental, cultural, into the World Heritage Convention's implementation process. To explore this debate from different angles, we're also focusing on the actual crux of the matter, which is implementation and accountability of what really happens on the ground. We have a special case studies project, which we'll also present further on in the month. Actually, every session will be rich with case studies. So that's where we think that Our World Heritage really brings a special, fresh perspective to the World Heritage arena. Without further ado, I would just like to thank again the team members who have organized this session today. Yapeng U, Deborah Barros, Maria Stefania Joya, Micah Godkop, and with the support of our other team members. And I'm looking forward to hearing the debate of today. Wishing everybody an enjoyable session. Over to you, Yapeng.
Thank you, Eji. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Very happy to see so many of you joining from different time zones across the world. So I am Yapeng O, a co-organizer of this webinar. I'm now a researcher on the nexus between rural-urban regeneration and innovation economies. First of all, on behalf of all my super colleagues, please allow me to welcome all of you to this webinar. This webinar, as Eji mentioned, is the very first one of a series of open discussions on sustainability and heritage that are rolling out through July within the framework of our World Heritage Initiative. So why are we organizing this webinar? There is evidence from the entire world, actually, that due to rapid social and economic transformations and challenging political scenarios in some cases, the implementation of the World Heritage Convention seemingly has failed to achieve a genuine alignment between cultural preservation, so that is the preservation of the outstanding universal value and sustainable development. For example, very likely, I think there are more homogeneous souvenir shops and bed and breakfasts than Venetians in Venice, or the ancient city of Pingyao in China. So when I was there and in deep night and quietness, I found it somehow so odd that I was not hearing any barking dogs. So apart from their extraordinary and breathtaking physical integrity, are they living in sustainable heritage cities? Of course, we are not urban-centric. Anyway, to answer this question is nothing easy. In an effort to do so, I think three issues will be highly relevant to our discussion today. So the first one is the scope of heritage and development must be broadened. Second, the conventional siloed approach to heritage and development needs to be abandoned and shift towards more holistic, coordinated, and cross-cutting approaches is an urgent need. Third, innovation will be the key to leverage the huge potential of heritage in a sustainable way to contribute to sustainable development. To delve into these issues, it's our honor to have three well-experienced experts with us today who are from various sectors and will share how in their professional and academic work, they are coupling heritage and development by exploring heritage-led, place-based, and people-centered approaches to heritage management. I encourage all participants to actively interact with our speakers, either in the chat box or in the Q&A box. Thank you. Without further ado, I give the floor to my colleague, Deborah Barros, who will tell you more about our speakers and other issues. Over to you, Deborah. Thank you.
Thank you, Yapeng. Welcome, everyone. I am Deborah Barros, co-organizer of the event and visiting assistant professor at Pratt Institute's Historic Preservation Program, a partner institution of our World Heritage Sustainability team. We are delighted to have you here today because we have assembled an absolutely stellar panel of speakers and moderator, and we hope that we enjoy the session as much as we have enjoyed preparing it for you. I will start the introductions with our esteemed moderator, Dr. Francesca Giliberto, a postdoctoral research fellow at Praxis, University of Leeds, where she authored the report on Heritage for Global Challenges. Her research at the University of Kent explores the impact of COVID-19 on heritage-based tourism in sub-Saharan Africa, while rethinking strategies towards increased tourism sustainability. In the past 10 years, Francesca has developed research and professional projects on cultural heritage and sustainable development in the framework of UNESCO's Historic Urban Landscape Recommendations, the United Nations Agenda 2030, and the 2015 UNESCO Policy on World Heritage and Sustainable Development. Everyone, welcome Dr. Francesca Giliberto. We are very lucky to have your expertise and you with us today. Now, moving on to our speakers. Our first speaker today is Shoshone Stewart. She will be sharing the breadth of her work as the CEO of Turquoise Mountain, an NGO founded in 2006, by His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, to revive historic areas, traditional crafts, to provide jobs, skills, and provide a renewed sense of pride to local communities. The charity started in Afghanistan, and Shoshana has been with them from the very beginning. And now they have spread their wings over Myanmar, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan. Before joining Turquoise Mountain, she worked as a teacher and administrator in low-income urban areas in the US and Honduras. She has an MBA from the London Business School, a master's degree in education, and a bachelor's in astrophysics. She has spoken at various international events, including a TEDx talk and the 2018 World Economic Forum in Davos. She's a senior fellow at the Yale Jackson Institute for International Affairs. Shoshone Stewart, we are overjoyed to have you here with us today. Welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Sorry, go ahead, Deborah.
No, go. Our second speaker is Dr. Claudio Marciano, Associate Professor of Agricultural Economics at the Agriculture Department of the Mediterranean University of Reggio, Calabria in Italy. He conducts action research focused on local governance and integrated development using mixed methodologies and decision support systems. He participated in 45 research projects, 24 of which he was a coordinator, and published more than 160 articles, book chapters, papers on the fields of agricultural and forest economics and policy, fishery economics, integrated rural development, and environmental economics. He has a PhD in agricultural economics and policy from Palermo University, and 3 different master's degrees in the field of agricultural economics and policy, agribusiness, and tropical forestry and social forestry. We are very lucky to have Dr. Marciano with us today, broadening the scope to focus on landscape and the environment. Welcome, Dr. Claudio Marciano. And our third speaker is Cristina Lodi. Cristina Lodi is a heritage specialist at Rio de Janeiro's Cultural Development Department. She is the director of the International Project, which is a shared collaboration for the management of the Balongo Wharf World Heritage Site and the design of the Territory Museum. Cristina holds a master's degree in historic preservation from Columbia University. She has worked in Brazil's Federal National Institute for Historic Heritage, IFAN, and she has also worked as an architect for the Rio World Heritage Institute. Cristina, we are very happy to have you here today with us talking about such a significant site with such a diversity of stakeholders. Welcome, Cristina. I would like to thank everyone for attending today and all our speakers and moderators for generously sharing their expertise and for taking the time to inspire us all today. Once more, just a reminder, questions in Zoom in the Q&A, and if you're joining us via YouTube, questions go in the chat. Thank you. And now, Shoshana, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Great. I'm going to pop up some pictures here. Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here. This is literally my favorite topic in the world. Heritage as a development strategy. I am a lover of heritage, but much more so than heritage in and of itself is that I think it's an incredibly powerful tool for changing people's lives and for interacting with communities in a much wider way. So, and love also the introduction about implementation. I think that is what it's all about. You know, how you do these things in reality, and the stickiness and the messiness and the things you don't plan and all of that. So love to tell you the story of Turquoise Mountain. 2 case studies in particular in Afghanistan, where we have been working for 15 years, And then in Jordan, where I've just arrived, where we're close to the beginning of our journey. So to have a look at those two. So thank you again for having me. So we are, as Deborah introduced, an organization that's about 15 years old, and we are a cultural preservation organization. That's what we exist to do. We were created for Afghanistan to start with, so this is very much about heritage under threat. So this is about all kinds of heritage, intangible, tangible. In the case of Saida here, who is a jeweler in Afghanistan, this is about a craft tradition, but also historic buildings. So let me transport you to Kabul. This is Murad Khani, and it's the heart of the old city of Kabul, and this is where we focused our work for the last 15 years. It's right on the banks of the Kabul River, so smack in the middle of the city, right across the streets from the presidential palace. And this was a place of incredible historic courtyard buildings, beautiful, intricate cedar work. But when we began, it was 6 feet deep in garbage. So we just basically hired everyone, got some wheelbarrows and shovels, and started to dig. So this is before, during, and after. We cleared about 30,000 small trucks of garbage out. Restored the buildings. So this is before and after, and you can get a sense of that carved cedar work there. Another building before and after, and we've restored 150 of those buildings, put in water supply, sanitation, electricity, stone paving down every house, down every street, and connected every house. And we trained about 4,000 masons, carpenters, electricians, engineers on this site. There they are. There were also a lot of things that we didn't plan on doing. You know, as a cultural heritage organization, if you had asked me 15 years ago if we were going to do primary health and primary education, the answer was no, not in the strategic plan. Not that we had one, I think. But you work with the community day in, day out, and nobody's going to a doctor and nobody's going to school. You deal with it. And community asked for access to a doctor. So we had a local doctor come and Dr. Farouk and come and refer to the local hospital, and that grew and grew. And we eventually created basically a family health clinic, which has served over 160,000 patients in the old city, about 70% of whom are women and girls. It's a maternal child health clinic. And we have a primary school. So every kid in Murad Khani has gone through our primary school, half boys, half girls. They're the twins on Nowruz, the Persian New Year. And we've really grown up with this community. I mean, the twins there, I remember when they were 3 before they entered the primary school. So that's Murad Khani in this area and the built heritage regeneration side of things. And then the craft side of things happening at the same time. So sort of encapsulated in this man, Abdul Hadi. Ustad Abdul Hadi was the great lattice woodworker of Afghanistan, this incredible jointed technique. There are no nails in that piece. It's not in size. They're all individually jointed. He worked for the king. I mean, he was a famous man. People knew his name. But when we met him, he was 76 and he was selling bananas in the bazaar, and he had been for 15 years. That's what happens. That's how a tradition dies out, is he had no clients. He had no students to whom he could pass on his skills. It stops. Khalas. So we brought Hadi out of retirement and a lot of other retired craft masters and built an institute around them. So this is now a fully accredited through City and Guilds in the UK and the Afghan government 3-year program, a vocational program in craft. So there's a school of calligraphy and miniature painting, jewelry and gem cutting, ceramics and woodworking. Realized very quickly that the training was great, but if they couldn't sell what they made, it wasn't going to work. Nobody would come and it wouldn't matter and it wouldn't stick. So we started trying to sell these things in a very amateur way in the beginning to sort of diplomats around Kabul and government officials. And over time, figured out how to export and figured out a very important lesson, which is that this is not about a race to the bottom. It's not about making the cheapest things. Not every country is able to do that in terms of its cost structure, but it's also horrible for wage structures, exploitation, and the actual preservation of those traditions. So these needed to be high quality, high standard of design products for international export. So our first big commission was for a hotel in London in the center of Mayfair called the Connell Hotel. It's a 5-star hotel, and they commissioned everything you see there, the door, the cabinets, the window bays, carved out of walnut wood in Afghanistan. And this was run by Ustad Nasser and about 20 other of his fellow students and graduates, one of whom is Khadija. And then individual businesses started to form. So Samira was the Afghan Female Entrepreneur of the Year in 2015. She created a business off of a huge contract that we got for a 5-star hotel in Mecca. You can see a trend here. 5-star hotels are very, very good to us. But she, exported $120,000 worth of calligraphy that year, individual original pieces for the suites. And working with international designers, Pippa Small's an ethical jeweler from London and sells in LA as well. And so those are pieces designed by Pippa with Saida. In fact, I'm wearing another pair of those out of a very iconic Afghan stone, lapis lazuli. Asprey, these are boxes made in Afghanistan. And finally, carpets. This is where we get into big time international, economic development opportunities. So Seema is a weaver in Bamiyan, in the Central Highlands of Afghanistan. There are almost 1 million weavers in Afghanistan. It's a huge labor force. And there's a huge global carpet industry where Turkey is basically not really weaving anymore. Iran is basically not really weaving for the West because of sanctions. And India is beginning to develop out of it. So Afghanistan has this opportunity to take that market share if they can do what that market wants, and that's the carpet industry of today. So if Seema can weave to a particular design, that means grappers and washing and finishing done in Afghanistan, and if it can be fair trade verified, which means we make sure that wages, working conditions, there are no children weaving, etc. There's a huge opportunity. So we have created 7,000 jobs over the last 2 years for weavers across Afghanistan. Again, when they get it right, these are much, much larger commissions. And this is everything from very traditional to very contemporary carpets. But the point is they are to the specification of the buyers, and that really works. So last point I will make in Afghanistan is very much about a World Heritage Site. This is Bamiyan, the home of the Buddhas, the statues that were destroyed by the Taliban, nearly 2 decades ago now. And we are restoring a caravanserai outside of the World Heritage Zone, this wonderful caravanserai, next to a weaving center that we have in a primary school. And this will be hopefully a carpet washing and finishing center. We like to give heritage buildings life. Okay, so that's Afghanistan. That's what it looks like 15 years on. Very briefly in Myanmar, just to show you, a different type of architecture. Obviously, this is before and after. And we also work in jewelry, lacquer, textiles. And then in Saudi Arabia, this has been much more craft focused. That's plaster carving from Jeddah, jewelry, khat, which is inscribed on the UNESCO Intangible Protected List, khat art from Asir, and the extraordinary Nabatean site of Al-Ula, which is really coming into its own, and people will begin visiting. So I would like to finish on Jordan, because that is the next case study, and I suppose the future big project for us. And again, it's about craft and a place. So we have been working with craft traditions for a couple of years in Jordan, and this is about Syrian masters, Jordanians, Palestinians, a whole mixture. So this is Aya. She is a Jordanian woman who now runs our jewelry workshop as a jeweler herself. The piece on the right is made by Abu Abdu, who's from Damascus, and it's the most extraordinary mosaic inlay work. And so you have in Jordan generations of Palestinian and Syrian refugees, but you also have extraordinary, which puts an enormous strain. And one can't say enough about how much this country has done to let people here and support them. And it's a place of incredible beauty, history, olive groves. It is really a stunning country. And here we find Abu Abdu. That's a more contemporary piece of inlay that he does. And so our first step is really to find the masters, as it was in Afghanistan. But the difference between Abdul Hadi, who was 76 and hadn't practiced in decades, and Maher, who's in his 40s, he's at the top of his game. He left Damascus very recently, but he has no tools, no wood, no staff, no clients. But he can produce like that. So for Maher, it was about meeting him, then beginning to buy things from him, and then getting Muhammad, who was an apprentice who we funded in the beginning. And then as Maher grew his business through the business that we were bringing to him, he could employ Muhammad on his own. And so Maher is very much back on track. Abu Abdu as well, Osama, Abu Nadal, extraordinary group of, in the case of woodworking, mostly Syrian masters. But in the case of stonework, glass, we're talking about, again, Syrians, Jordanians, and Palestinians. We do this across stone carving, jewelry, metalwork, and all these types of wood. Marian is a jeweler, a Jordanian jeweler who we've just met this year, but she is somebody who has not only loved the jewelry and the making, but has become very interested in design and in teaching. And every artisan does a different track in this, I suppose. Marian is deaf and has committed herself to teaching other deaf women to do jewelry. She's found a real vocation in this. And so we are, of course, bringing these things to market. That's the crucial backbone here to creating employment through intangible heritage. So this is, we did the packaging for the Ramadan collection for Joe Malone, the British scent company, for the last 2 years. Again, the Connaught, they're commissioning a suite across the hall, which will be done in Jordan. This is our showroom in Rainbow Street. This is a glass blower from Hebron. And we also run, this is like the clinic in the primary school in Afghanistan. You work with the community. This is the communities in Azraq and Zatri refugee camps. And families were just missing the connection to home, and in particular for their kids, many of whom were born outside of Syria. And so we run heritage classes, spending an hour a day basically just being joyful and proud about where, the traditions from which you come, and talking to your grandparents about patterns and food and proverbs and song and dance. So they do mosaic, etc. One of the things we found, though, actually, and UNICEF has very kindly sort of helped us expand this, is that it's actually a really great way to get kids back into formal education. The teacher in me, zoom back 15 years, knows what it looks like to be removed from formal education and then come as a 12-year-old who doesn't really know how to read or write, doesn't really have the fine motor skills set. They can be honed quite quickly, but you walk into a classroom, you feel like you're failing. And so to get people back into a classroom, in a classroom setting, in a joyful way is really important and really hard. And actually Heritage does that. Building mosaics, everyone loves building mosaics. Finally, Umkais, on which I will end. So we have just, working in collaboration with the government of Jordan and others, we are working on this extraordinary site right at the northern tip of Jordan. So picture right where it touches Syria and Israel. You stand there and you look out, and there's the Golan Heights. There's the Sea of Galilee. You have Daraa in the south of Syria to your right, Lebanon over the mountains straight ahead, Israel, you have the West Bank over your left shoulder. You feel like you're in the center of everything. And you turn around and it's a Roman ruin. And you think, did no one notice this was here? I mean, it is an extraordinary sprawling, there's an amphitheater. Just to give you a sense of what it feels like, it's very overgrown. And the Department of Antiquities, the Jordanian government, has done a lot, but there's a lot more to be done. There's an Ottoman period village, of course, built out of the Roman stones up on the hilltop, but it just goes on, and these incredibly picturesque and totally invasive cacti that need to be removed. You just have mosaics exposed. There's one. So this site is just it's incredible potential for sustainable tourism in the north of Jordan. So that's what we're going to try to do. It will be for us about what it is always about. It's about heritage buildings. It's about craft. It's about the community, and it's about the economic driver behind that, which in this case is about the sales of craft and sustainable tourism. And this, we hope, will anchor tourism in the north of Jordan, which has huge potential. You have Jaresh, you have Umkais. Those are two sites of the Decapolis, but you have nowhere to stay up north. So you need to work on creating accommodation. And I guess on which I will end, I think the implementation is the key, because it's great to say you're going to bring tourism, but if people have nowhere to stay, it doesn't work. And if you don't deal with all variety of issues, it's not really going to work. So this will be a complicated project, but it's the type that we love. This has been our first sort of intervention, is just putting protective railings in the Western Theater, which has been very hazardous, reinstalling the stage, beginning to bring it back into order. And then this building we're just starting on now, on which I will end. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much to you, Shoshana, for your very fascinating presentation. I'm so delighted to have the chance to hear more about what Turquoise Mountain is doing in this often politically unstable countries. So thank you very much for the input you gave us today, and I hope your presentation can start simulating some question and answers in the chat. So I see that there is a question for you, but I will keep question for the end of the 3 presentations. And also what I would like to highlight to your in relation to your presentation is the fact that you mentioned that you with your work you ended up working in some sectors that are not so much traditionally heritage related, such as, for example, health, because we can imagine a greater link between heritage and education maybe, but not so much with health. So this is something I would like to keep in mind for our future discussion. And yes, so thank you very much. And I would like to introduce our next speaker, Claudio Marciano, who is giving us a presentation on the preservation of olive forest landscape as a tool for territorial development in Calabria. But before starting with the presentation, I would like to remind you, Claudio, to keep the time to 15 minutes, so everybody has the time to give a presentation, and we will have enough time for discussion at the end. So thank you very much, and Claudio, the floor is yours. Sorry, Marciano, Claudio, you need to unmute yourself because we cannot hear you.
That's true.
Okay, perfect. Now we can hear you well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the invitation. And now we focus a little bit on a small part of Italy, one of the poorest regions in Europe, and it is located in Calabria. And the problem is the one of how to protect landscape that little by little disappear for socioeconomic reason, for low profits for the farmers, for land abandonment. And we have one case, and this is olive forest, a kind of landscape that is very particular. It is unique in the world, with trees that are majestic for their dimensions, 20 meters in height, and can be seen as real monuments that are a symbol of a traditional olive grove in Calabria. Recently, some olive oil producers, landowners, but also local communities, are thinking of ways to maintain this landscape that is little by little disappearing. And this is the main line of the presentation. And the project is contextualized in a leader transnational cooperation project with 7 areas in Italy, Germany, and Scotland, and with several local action groups of the leader program, couple of universities, one in Scotland and my university, and other entities. So it is a kind of mixed public-private partnership with the private component that is dominant. And the approach was to study an approach to landscape management that could be practical in a way that in the way of promoting territorial development, to foster cooperation between different territories and create synergies between also different integrated planning tools. There is a shortage of financial resources for rural development, for integrated development. So it's to cope with this problem, we need to strengthen the synergies between different funds, and also to promote the multifunctional use of rural heritage, strengthening the ability of local communities to adapt to changes. And this was an European journal that was the center point was in Lombardy, a region that is very strong, very active in Italy. And I am here in the southern part of Italy, and this is one of the poorest region. Then we went also in Germany and in Scotland, where they were specialized in slow tourism, adventure tourism. The idea of the local project, we had a transnational project with the approach. Then we had the local project. Each group chose what kind of landscape to analyze. And our in Calabria was situated in the Tyrrhenian region, in the western side of the. It was also the idea was to think of this olive forest that was very unique, and to think also of the coastal part and of the mountain part. So the activities were different. The location is in South Italy, right in this portion of the. In this portion, this area is a metropolitan town of 100 municipalities. It is very rural as a metropolitan town, and it can be divided in two with mountains here, and we are focusing in the western part. And in this western part, we have these 43 municipalities and two different landscapes that are traditional rural landscape, the olive forest and this part Costa Viola, we call it, for the colors of the sea. And the olive forest is can be located in the hilly areas or in the plain areas. And there is a problem nowadays because there is a replacement of traditional olive cultivation with intensive olive cultivation and also other crops. And so we were wondering what we can do if there is a way to preserve this area. And methodologically, we did gather. We were like 20, 30 people working on this, and we worked on historical documents, on the characterization from ecological and economic point of view of the area. We made maps, we differentiated different types of olive groves, and then we classified also this type of forest. We made a photographic documentation. I did put some picture in the presentation, and of course we did some interviews to some olive groves owners to see if they were willing to accept or to promote some kind of intervention activities to preserve this This was called a sea of olive trees, because olive is the olive tree is emblematic for the Mediterranean regions. And this is the Rosarno and Gioiatauro plain. This was once, a few years ago, it was very famous all over the world for the problem of this orange and with immigrants. And this is a kind of, there are orange and there are olive trees. It is very old, the land is alluvional, and dates back to the Quaternary, is a very flat, large flat area with numerous streams. And this landscape is completely different from the other part of the landscape in the Ionic side, in the east side. The current physiognomy of the plain of Rosarno and Gioiatauro in Calabria began to take shape in the second half of the 18th century, and it is the result of some natural, political, social events. A very strong earthquake of 1783 changed it was very drastic, and another political was that had affected the area was also the French Revolution and the kingdom of the two series during Murat in the early 19th century. So the landscape changed very fast because there was, with the earthquake, there was an abandonment of the hilly areas that where the urban areas were destroyed by the earthquake and isolated from each other. There were also very bad road condition, and also being very poor, the territory could not meet the food needs of a constantly growing population. So it began a migration process toward the plain. People were moving from the mountains to the plain, and where they removed the forest vegetation, carried out the necessary land reclamation measures, in order to have a better life. And this was done during the Murat kingdom. In very short time, the forest formation took the place of the forest of cork oaks, poplars, willows, alders, and other Mediterranean plants. They were being replaced by these species that would become that was the most peculiar of the whole area, the olive tree. It was a crop that local people knew already very well, cultivated in inland areas, internal areas near the town. So it was very natural for them to start spreading it on a large scale, even in the areas that would be deforested and reclaimed. The success of this, here we see the height of this monument. This is 1 person, 2 meters, and this goes up to 20-25 meters. This is because it's unique. The success of the crop was facilitated because did not cause any particular problem, and the oil was very much appreciated and demanded from the foreign market. The export markets were the United Kingdom for lighting, French for the production of soap, Poland, Odessa, but mainly it was used after the Industrial Revolution to light the lamp of the fabrics where they needed light for 20 hours a day. There was not still electricity, and the olive oil, in fact we call lampante, it was very much used and very much demanded. So the landscape of the area was dominated by the olive tree, which even today show certain features that make it unique and worthy of being handed down, at least partially, in its current monumental reality as a cultural, agricultural, and historical witness to the relationship between man and environment. The olive forest covered an area of almost 30,000 hectares and extended from the sea level up to 600-700 meters. And this is one map we did. The territory can be divided in 2 areas with different characteristics according to history, origin, and age of the plants. In the internal foothills, up here, located between 300 and 600 meters above sea level, far from coast and difficult to access, we have the original forest, olive forest. Since the beginning of the 19th century, thanks to the systematic land reclamation measures carried out under the reign of Murat in lowland areas, mostly swamp areas, in a short time, olive growing, as we said, spread along the plain. And this is particular because it is a plain, but it was cultivated with these huge trees, especially in order to meet the huge demand for oil by the North European countries, also Russia. So this, from the end of World War II, of course, with these plants, the olive oil was not used more for lightening, and it started a process of replacing these plantations with other more profitable tree crops, like kiwi, which radically changed the typical landscape of this area. So in the end of the 19th century, was used as lamp oil, then electricity, then it started little by little to decrease the use of olive oil. But right after World War II, there was a very strong decrease in the land occupied by forestries because other crops became more convenient for the farmer. This is because mainly of the low margins of the traditional olive grove, and it was replaced by an innovative and intensive olive grove that could also, because of the use of the olive oil then became only for food, for extra virgin and virgin olive oil. We have to say also something about the biodiversity value of this forest that is home to numerous species, and also that is an important habitat for many rare plant species. The proposal we were studying, the study was done some years ago, is to include this forest as a priority habitat, as a European priority habitat, but we also started to think of the establishment of a protected landscape. We had a regional law, and we had simply a protected landscape can be seen as an integrated plan, where we think of activities to be carried out by private and public bodies and partnership. And here we go to the governance process that was developed in the area, and with the necessity to, because the money in a rural area is few, but we have several integrated plans, and we did these are integrated plans, each one of 5. This is the area, and the red ones are integrated plans for urban, for internal areas, and this is the LEADER program. The LEADER program these are several integrated plans, because 5 million, 10 million of euros, very few for 40 municipalities. But when we sum up and integrate and make synergies between different plans, we can reach some kind of critical financial resource that can help in reviving and activating also small farms. The blue bodies are the public, the municipalities, and these violet are the private. And this was part of our work. I strongly believe in action research, so we did build a kind of local action group, and that little by little became a very central governance in the whole area, because without this program, the LEADER program, all the other small areas, the mountains, the coastal, would not have a kind of central governance system that could mix and make things synergize. This was in the previous, until 2010. Then 2007 until 2015, we had 2 main governance system. That is one in the rural areas, one in the coastal areas. And we worked a lot also in the making up of these plans and in the synergization between with other plans. As we see, without these 2 plans, the private persons and companies are not represented in the governance of the area. So there are 2 main programs, and these 2 main programs work, one in the coastal area. I didn't show, I will not show anything about the coastal area because we have no time, but it is very important to mix and to focus and to try to make synergy between the coastal development and the internal area. And this was from 2014 to 2020, and we had also a food district, agro-food district that we are working on. But these 2 main local governance systems really slow it down. And this is the area, the whole area of the metropolitan area with the local products, because we are now thinking of a food district of the area, and this public announcement is now going on, and I go fast in the discussion. So there is a very fast change in the area. There are pressures on the farmers, and luckily there are normative constraints that limit the eradication of the olive trees, and there are complex governance process. We think that in this part,
sorry,
sì.
Claudio, to jump in. I think we have already used more than
stop?
our 15 minutes. Yes,
Okay,
you can wrap up with maybe a final highlight from your presentation, and then we move on. Thank you so much. I'm sorry.
I stop.
Okay, okay. Well, so thank you very much for illuminating us on the role of olive trees as a kind of heritage for territorial and socioeconomic development in the south of Italy. So I won't spend any more word, and so I can give the floor to our third speaker. I would just like to remind the audience that you can ask question in the Q&A box, and also I would like to invite our speakers to start answering the question in the Q&A box. So if we don't have time to discuss all of them, let's say face to face, you will get your answer in a written form. So, Cristina, you're very much welcome to tell us more about your case studies in Brazil. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, let's start with the presentation. And here, let me see. I'm sorry.
Era lá mesmo, Cristina, tela cheia.
Okay, so
Where we were.
yeah. All right, so
Acima no tela cheia, eu acho.
I'm sorry. Okay, thank you for the invitation to be here today and to speak a little bit about this sensitive heritage in the terms of sustainable development. I think Brazil's World Heritage sites can contribute a lot with this discussion in the means that we have many sites where we combine the features of natural, cultural, or tangible or intangible heritage together. In this case of Valongo Wharf, we have a special challenge that is as a sensitive heritage, how we can do it in the way that we talk about very difficult issues, but necessary to remind us that we cannot repeat facts and actions from the past as the Atlantic slavery trade system. Well, in the Transatlantic Slave Trade Atlas by Eltis and Richardson shows that nearly half of the Africans bought as slaves to the America have come to Brazil, about 4.68 million. Of these, more than 2 million landed in Rio de Janeiro, and especially in Valongo Wharf archaeological site that is surprisingly, there is a sanitation of this memory in the urban space. And there we say in our collective memory and official historiography. So this is the World Heritage Site in red. The dashed lines are the shorelines in the past. And here is the future of the archaeological site, where you can see that the city, a lot of landfills were created in order to develop the port area of Rio de Janeiro. So I'm the director of technical cooperation project between the UNESCO Brazil and the city of Rio de Janeiro, where I'm an architect from the city of Rio de Janeiro. And we developed this international project in order to conduct a series of projects and studies, and in order to think about how can we manage the Valongo Wharf archaeological site, World Heritage, because we have several institutions involved in this management of the Valongo Wharf. Well, the city decided that in order to contribute to the interpretation of the Valongo Wharf, since it was inscribed in the list as World Heritage in the criteria 6, that says that the criteria 6 states that the heritage has to be directly or tangibly associated with events or living traditions, with ideas or beliefs, in our case, related to this African Brazilian heritage, especially in this port area that we called Little Africa. Okay, so in order to contribute to this interpretation of this associate ideas and places that tells us the story of all this African Brazilian heritage, we developed a territory museum that we called the African Brazilian Museum of History and Culture. Well, this territory museum has obviously the local nucleus in the Valongo Wharf, but also we have a headquarters in one of the city property that was called José Bonifácio Cultural Center, that since from the 80s, it was used. It was, in the beginning, it was a public school, a very 19th century, very beautiful public school. But since the 1980s was used as a cultural center based on the Brazilian African culture. So the Valongo Wharf main interpretation center will be in front of the archaeological site. And the museum, the Mukabi, as we call the museum, has the mission to be a museum to tell the truth and to make the right for memory and the celebration of the African Brazilian heritage. In the organization of the museum, we are, through this international cooperation project, developing all these studies to organize the research center in the José Bonifácio, the preservation center, to look at the collections, small collection, museologic collection we have there, but also to develop and support the interpretation of Valongo and the visitation center, and to bring to the public 15 places of memory in this area that talks about, that means something about the African Brazilian culture. Mukabi, this territory museum, has been developed to be a hub whose collections are representative or a specific territory. In the case of the Little Africa, in the port area of Rio, whose collections to the same territory is realized through a set of actions inarticulated with the community and other local institutions. Emphasis given to the cultural and social relationships between men and territory, and values natural and cultural processes, and not only the objects as product of the culture. The museum based on social time, and we talked about how the urban evolution of the port region of the Rio de Janeiro overlapping interventions, erasing the history of the Little Africa or Small Africa, in such as the Valongo Wharf. Here are some of these places of memory that we map and we study, and as we are in the last process of this international cooperation project, we're developing an exhibition, permanent exhibition in the Territory Museum to tell the story. We focus on Valongo, but passing through all these 15 places of memory. Here are some of them. In the top, we have, in the left, we have the José Bonifácio School when our museum had cars, and then the Valongo Wharf, and then the Valongo Interpretation Center, the main interpretation center. Here in the bottom of the school, we have the Pretos Novos Cemetery, a cemetery that exists in the 19th century, and it's an archaeological site as well, where the sick or the people who died during the journey to Brazil were buried. We have also in the middle, we have a place is Pedra do Sal, a place where African Brazilians were gathering, is related to a lot of events, intangible events related to African Brazilian culture, and so on. So here we can see how in the territory the Valongo Wharf is placed, and how it connects to all these 15 places of memory. So in terms of social, environmental, and financial sustainability, the idea to make a territory museum is to engage in actions already underway in the port area of Rio de Janeiro, all the places of memory that are run by private institutions or public institutions, or places where this heritage, this intangible heritage has its events, but also this museum, it's approaching to have a long-term financial planning. We are still finishing the studies to start to reopen this museum by next November, but we also to seek to meet needs for the current generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs, to our needs. So we are talking about how the people live today, perform today, all the ceremonies that are made in this territory, but also to talk about them. How can we still have in Brazil so many discrimination and social issues related to this community, and then thinking about and debating in the museum about all these issues. We are trying to reach a better future for this community. Okay, we also, in terms of sustainability, it's very important to not do things alone. We have to connect to other experiences all over the world. So bring the experiences already done in other museums that talk about the slavery or the African matrix cultures. And we visited them, we bring them to here, and we are doing seminars to connect to other experiences. In Brazil also, we are connecting to several institutions and looking for other experiences to enlarge and to make a network to not make this experience in the Valongo Wharf isolated, because it tells us a story. It reminds us a period of the time that makes very hard time for a very large number of a lot of Brazilians. And thank you so much. Here we have the website and the social media also. There you can also know a little bit more about our experience here. Thank you so much to be in this wonderful discussions about sustainability for World Heritage Sites. Thank you, Francesca.
Thank you so much, Cristina, for your brilliant presentation, and thank you to all the three speakers for the brilliant inputs you provided us today. I think we can all agree that you presented a rich variety of ways in which heritage and different kind of heritage can be used to foster a sustainable development, which is more inclusive, people-centered, long-term, and able to bridge the bridges between to build bridges between different kind of institutions and sectors. I think there are several points that emerge clearly from all the presentations, such as, for example, the issues of the financial sustainability of this project. Many people in the chat and in the question raised the points of on funding. How can we develop this project in a sustainable way, also in terms of funding and public and private partnership, which kind of partnership are necessary, and this can be made from a monetary point of view, but also from resources in the broader term point of view. So which kind of resources do we need? Do they need to be necessarily financial, or they can be human or technical, or in terms of capacity buildings and then so on. And then we also add the point of how heritage can be used, beyond this traditional field of expertise. So, for example, in the work I've carried out at Praxis, I try to understand how heritage research is actually contributing to all the sustainable development goals, for example. So from poverty reduction to sustainable cities and communities, to global health and well-being, to tackling climate change, and so on. And similarly, with my work as part of the ICOMOS SDGs working group, we developed a policy guidance document in order to support heritage and development actors in, first of all, understanding how their work and heritage can be used in order to foster broader approaches to sustainable development, but also to provide a concrete guidance to guide the overall project, because as Shoshana said at the beginning, the key challenge is related to the implementation of this approach and facing current challenges in practice. So we have a few questions in the chat. other questions in other means on WhatsApp and in private messages. So I would like to start with the third presentation because it's the fresher one. We have a question which will be quick to answer for Cristina, and it's and Patricia O'Donnell is asking. Is asking a question in relation to the relationship between your project and the slave history in Walongo Wharf and the African Brazilian culture. So how your project was able to change the local perception in regarding to this memory. So how the perception of the slave history of Walongo Wharf is shifting as the project has come forward. Were you able to notice some changes in perception, or how do you think your project contribute to change it?
Do you want me to change right now? To answer right now?
Yes,
okay.
Maybe.
Okay. Hi, shortly. Patricia. It's very nice to meet you here. We work together in the cultural landscape of Rio de Janeiro. And I shift a little bit my my practice to this sensitive heritage. And what I have to tell you that Walongo Wharf, it's a symbol. And since July 9, 2017, when it enters the World Heritage List, it has been brought many initiatives and discussions and seminars regarding the slavery history in Brazil. And we've been sharing all this development of this interpretation for this sensitive site with a lot of people, not just in Brazil, but also around the world. So these sensitive places are the ones who exist to remind us the pain, and to remind us also that we have to do something to go over the pain. And the Walongo Wharf and all the work we have been done has been lifting these questions, how to deal with this very pain facts, and how to go over. And Walongo as a territory, as seen as a territory of this African Brazilian culture, tells us that we have also, after this slavery period, a very important period of how the culture of Brazilian culture was transformed by these people who came from Africa. So we have these two lines in our exhibition, in our mission, to make sure that people knows the pain and the story that brings the pain, but also to transform it and know all the contributions that the Africans made to transform the Brazilian culture. And it's amazing how it happens. We are, as all you know, the Carnival in Rio de Janeiro and all in Brazil are an expression of this culture. And it's been very important to bring these two lines of interpretation to the site of Walongo and also to the Territory Museum we are building.
Thank you very much, Cristina, for the clarification. Well explained these linkages. And now I would like to introduce you Harry Wardle, that I'm happy is here because unfortunately Shoshana had to leave 20 minutes ago. So her colleague Harry will work on this project for more than 5 years is happy to answer the questions related to the projects carried out by Turquoise Mountain. So some of them were already answered in the chat, but I think there is a question for you, Harry, which is actually a question that can be translated to the other speakers as well. It's related about the long-term dependency of the value chain of the project. So Juliana Strogan is asking if there is a sustainability plan to the withdrawal of the foundation when this project shows solidity enough to be independent and locally run. So again, it's about the long-term sustainability of this project. And linked to this question, to this point, there was another question from Ege Ildirim, asking, highlighting the fact that the Turquoise Mountain has had a very wealthy investor, the Prince of Wales, who provided seed money for as an economic catalyst. So how this model can be also replicated in other contexts by other stakeholders with more modest means. So I hope that the question is clear.
Sure, perfect, thank you. Yeah, so on the first question, I guess, I think it varies from the different geographies that we're in. I think Afghanistan is a particularly demanding geography where we started out, and we have the way it sort of works, if we're talking about the craft industry and what we're doing there in terms of bringing artisans to market, we tend to try to address certain things along the value chain, specific issues. And then once those are addressed, and those tend to be addressed with grant money, and then we try and build up a sustainable, through the sales and through the market linkages, the kind of sustainable model from there onwards. And there are examples within our work within Afghanistan, for instance, where we actually do extract ourselves from the value chain. And once the issues are addressed, so for example, in jewelry, some of the jewelry suppliers are working directly with clients we've introduced them to, and we therefore withdraw from that because we're not adding any additional value at that point. What we do tend to do then is then take on either different crafts or different parts of the value chain and continue on in there. So yes, certainly that's the method for working, but and there is a kind of withdrawal of that, but there's just so much to address, I guess, particularly with the value chain in Afghanistan and all the challenges that we have working there, that we have continued to work there, and we will continue to work there for the foreseeable future. But I think the way of extracting ourselves is on a sort of case-by-case basis, I would say. And I think that's a model that works, and it enables us to take on more and more of the aspects of the value chain. So for example, in Myanmar, you look at the textiles industry and the handwoven textiles industry, and we address certain issues within that, and then take on more once issues are addressed. So the dyeing of yarns is a particularly focus of ours at the moment, something we really want to make it more sustainable in an economic sense, but also in an environmental sense. So we're investing money into that. And then the hope is that once that's addressed, we can withdraw ourselves from that bit of the value chain. And then to the second question on our founding patron, the Prince of Wales, I think it's a misconception that he's putting lots of money into us. That's not necessarily the case, but it certainly helps to have a high profile founding patron for sure. But yeah, we like every other NGO have to raise money on a kind of a project by project basis based on same as everyone else, really going out to different donors. So we have, as I think Shoshana mentioned in one of her responses to the questions, we have a kind of web of donors which are geography and kind of outcome specific. So that's across a whole load of different projects.
Thank you very much, Harry. Cristina and Claudio, would you like to add something on this point based on your own experience? Maybe Claudio, you talk about.
I feel very actual. When Cristina was talking about the history of Portugal, about how this change in the local culture, how you changed, and it is very actual for me because we have this kind of immigration process, and we didn't start yet, Cristina, here still with the integration process, because it is out. I don't know, we are not ready. I think it is not, we have not enough ideas inside our head. But I heard, I'm working in our Horizon project in Boston. In Boston, the racism is one of the main problems. and they are very well integrated there. In Calabria, we have this kind of problem. In the same area I showed, there was this kind of battle of insurrection some years ago. I think you heard about the Orange War in Rosarno. It was the same place. And I think we can, I think we have long way to go to reach your point, Cristina, here, when we are, because now we are in pain. Our pain is actual. I go to the sea and I go to the forest, and I see what maybe you saw in other times. So it's, I think we can learn from each other. We can think of how to, but it is a very slow process because it is linked to the development of the society of the place. So in a undeveloped, still a society like this one here, it is slower, it goes slower. It is developing, but there is really a lot to do. I would say everything still has to do, to be planned, to build a proper society here, because we are together, but we are not together. It would be very nice for you to come here and have a walk in these places and to see the pain, because you have the problem of going far from pain. We are in this pain now, and it's not easy.
Well, I think we are in the pain. We still are in the pain. If you see racism, how it stays in our society, we're still in pain. But the case of Brazilians, we are very open people, so we made this pain into samba, into other things. So we have this dichotomy between knowing what cause this pain, but also to go over it, right? But in terms of sustainability and how to develop a long-term or foundation, or this museum that we are building is a public museum. But when we decided to make a territory museum and to make it a hub where we tell the story of these other places, we make we are making importance of these places. Some of these places of memory are run by private institutions, and our goal is talking about it in other places, make them developed as well. So in terms of the Valongo Wharf necessary physical interventions, we went in a fundraising, and we brought private institutions to bring money from to make the works. We had money from the America Ambassadors Fund, and also money from China. So these two big countries were sponsor the work in Valongo Wharf. So it's not easy for a public museum. Think about in long term, we have a lot of problems related to continuity in public administration. But the way we did, this international cooperation project with UNESCO since 2017 was a way to make the museum line and the museum proposals pass through different administrations, and that's what I can contribute.
Thank you, Cristina, and I'm happy that we are already creating synergies within this event today. So I'm conscious of time, so I would like to remind all of you to answer the question in the Q&A, so no question will remain unanswered. And I would like to ask a question to all of you, because it's something that is widely emerging from several questions, so I'm combining many of them into just one, which is tricky. So and it will be tricky to ask it in a very telegraphic way, because we are closing. So the question is, you have been all with your project, you have been all working with local communities and with communities of different levels, so from the local level to citywide, national, and also international level. What do you think, but in a very telegraphic way, what do you think have been the most important challenges in working with communities, and what do you think needs to be done? What are the priorities now for us as let's say sustainable development community to be responded now and in the next years? So in order to provide more meaningful people-centered approaches.
Okay, I can start. All right, so in our museum, in order to bring the community too close to us, since we are a public institution, we created a council with more than 30 institutions related to the African Brazilian or African Rio de Janeiro culture. So this is a way to always, and the practice we had is in every stage of this international project, in every stage of this development project, we present to this council. So they had the approval, and they saw the proposals, and they are working with us. But I think it's working with communities, even in a council or a committee, it's very hard, because every institution has its own way of thinking, and there is a lot of challenging to keep them close to us and to make the public interest be aware of this community interest. So that's how we deal with this community in our project. And
just jumping in from Turquoise side, I think Shoshana mentioned obviously about the project in Moridhani in Kabul, and I mean that's very much a project in partnership with the community, and they've been integral to it throughout from every sort of aspect. And I think she probably explained about how the project kind of adapted to what the needs of the community were in terms of straying outside of perhaps our primary focus of kind of heritage preservation, and then going into more kind of like setting up the primary school and the clinic. So it's really that kind of partnership with the community in those integrated heritage regeneration projects. And then the project that we're starting out in Jordan is very similar, but we're obviously right at the beginning of that process. And community is absolutely fundamental to say whether that project will be a success or not. So kind of involving them upfront in all the decisions from everything from kind of like the determining the conservation guidelines for how we actually address the history to what we actually assess as the significance of all the history, because there's so many layers of history there, and obviously how we see it from our side will differ from how different members of the community see it from their side and what's significant. So it's just such a fundamental part of the process, ensuring that they are involved in every part of it, including the kind of definition of what the significance of the heritage is.
Well, I would say that we would have to, maybe there is a long way, it's not banal this, but I think the first thing is to feel that we are part of the community. Whatever work we do, when we are in approaching a community, we should feel that we are part of that community. And it's not easy because there are private point of views, public point of views. We discussed also strong pains, and using a strong image, I think we should develop. We are seeing it with environment, with the coronavirus. We are little by little realizing that we are in the same boat. In the same boat with immigrants, I would say. With them, we are in the same boat. In realizing this, I think little by little we become more human, more humble. There is a long way to do yet in each part, and we have to do our little part of feeling that we are part of this wide community.
Thank you to all of you. I would like just to add a very small minor question to Claudio in relation to immigrants, because as Italian, I know very well the condition of especially the local farmers in the south of Italy, because mainly they are coming from, they are actually immigrants working in the black economy without social security, with very precarious jobs. So I was wondering how your project, if and how your project was able to deal maybe with this aspect.
No,
No,
no, we didn't. We had already. It was not realized that protected area, because we have already problems in dealing with private and public partnership. We have problems in doing action research, going down to the territory and there ask and there find our research question, and this is common in university. And about the immigrants, I go windsurfing in the weekend. I find my surf, and there are immigrants that live in 1 meter for 2 meters cabins, and they have everything there. And there is a distance, I would say a social distance that needs to be first recognized, and we even don't see that. Then it must be accepted. And even in that case, we have to feel that we are part of that. This is a very long process. In some, I think in general, you are Italian in South Italy, I would say, and especially in also Calabria, it is also a very close region. We have a long way to go. We should think, research, and develop ideas that make us live better. All of us.
Yes, and I think we can close with this thoughts and with this feeling of hope for the future. So how can our work may be really useful in order to make our life and the life of the most maybe marginalized and disfranchised communities better. So I think now it's really time to close. So I will give the floor to Estefania Gioia for giving some final remarks. And I thank you very much. I thank all the speakers and all the organizers for inviting me here. It has been a really interesting and enriching session today. And I hope we can continue the discussion in the next events over this month.
Thank you, Francesca. I invite as well all my colleagues and team members from our World Heritage Group to turn on their cameras so they can be present in this part. Can you see the screen that I'm sharing?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Well, as part of our World Heritage Sustainability team, I'm supposed to do the reporting of this event. As we are a bit late of the schedule, I will just highlight some key points emerging today, and then a full report of this event will be shared. Like, for example, the role of social capacity, the process of embracing local capacity development, and the challenges that come from to integrate policy and integrate plans, increasing local socioeconomic endogenous capacity of the community. A point about the action research as a way to link the gap between academic and entrepreneurships and society. That was an interesting key point. Then the necessity to promote tools helping process of nature, cultural valorization, and community engagement, and as well the emerging key concept of tools for social, environmental, and financial sustainability for local institutions to promote further collaborations, as well as the role of recommendation promoting, for example, tools, methods to conflict resolution, inclusion, peace and governance, towards promoting sustainability forms of development in form of processes and projects. And I could continue, but the full report, as I was saying, will be shared after this month's discussion. In order to close this event, I would like to recall all the events that will happen this month. As you can see, we have more than 10 events and happening on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. For example, tomorrow, Saturday, we will have the event about heritage and climate change. On Wednesday, next week, we will have a special event promoting a partnership with a UN High Political Forum. And you see that we have as well, for example, a specific thematic event that indigenous forums. Then we will have as well more events about our global case study conclusions and the recommendation of that case studies, and so on and so forth. We invite you to register all attendees in the link that is appearing on the screen, and as well, I don't know if I can. I will try. I invite you as well to follow our social networks and to be in contact with us. I would like to thank again all the participants, all our speakers. I would like to thank Francesca for being so good on her work, and of course I would like to thank the attendees that were a lot. And and that's it. I mean, if you want to I don't know if any other of my colleagues would like to say something. If
Just
not,
a wholehearted thank you to everyone who participated, our wonderful moderator, all the speakers, Harry who jumped in last minute, everybody who worked behind the scenes, Shreya, Flacam. It's a lot of effort and something that we do with all our hearts. So thank you, everyone. Yeah, Peng, I don't know if you want to say something as well.
You're muted.
You're muted.
So I really hope that after these 3 excellent presentations and discussions, we will come to a common understanding that we do have similar challenges and humanities than differences. So let's keep the dialogue and collaborate more for a shared sustainable future. I'd like to thank all of our speakers and Francesca for their hard work, and of course also thanks to all my amazing colleagues and all the participants, especially those who stayed till now. Even though now we have to conclude, keep in mind that this is not the very end, but it's just the very start of the whole month's debates on this issue. And so see you next time, and thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Do we need to take photos?
I was already taking pictures while you were. Okay.
Have a good day. Take care and have a nice weekend.
Bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.